Austin, Chloe, welcome to PV Fireside.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Yeah.
Thanks for being on. All right, so as they would say in Hollywood, who is Austin and Chloe Mapa?
Oh boy, that's a loaded question.
Yeah, and you can start wherever you want. You can, you can go anywhere you want with that.
Nice. You want to start, honey?
Yeah, sure. So I'm Austin. I grew up here in Placerville, and so this has been my home for a long time till I moved to Walla Walla for a little bit. Met Chloe, got married, and now we have a baby. So
Nice.
yeah, and now we're back here. So one thing that you might know me from is Heritage Singers.
Okay.
I am Max Mace's grandson and Val Mace's son. So that's probably how you may have heard of me before.
Sure.
And I just love being a part of that legacy and the family. It's been great. So that's kind of a rough introduction of where I'm from.
Yeah, if you're okay if I chase that a little bit.
Sure.
So you're obviously a musician.
Yeah.
How did that spark happen, or was it just like you don't even remember, or?
Yeah, it's just being around it all the time. You just pick up on little things, and it's just really natural. And for me, well, for the whole family actually, like we don't know how to read music. The
Really?
funny thing about Heritage, yeah, like no one in the family knows how to read music.
Wow.
Not even my grandpa. So it is kind of funny how he has a singing group that's known for like harmonies and stuff. So yeah, it's very interesting.
Known fact. That's awesome. Okay.
But it's just kind of in everyone. Like we don't know the theory, but we know like what makes something good. So that's just something I picked up along the way. Like being young, like I know I was in my mom's belly when she was in concerts. So I mean, and Caden heard some concerts too. So yeah, it's just a family thing. It's just natural, I guess. So yeah, that's where I say that's where that comes from.
Beautiful. And then, so what all instruments is it just drums, or do you play any others?
So yeah, I started out doing percussion at EAS.
Yeah. Okay.
And then my band teacher really wanted me to try timpani. And I never heard of timpani before. I didn't know what that was all about, but I tried it and I really liked it. And that actually took me through college. I got to play in the Walla Walla University Symphony and their band playing timpani.
Yeah.
And that's how I got to connect into music there, and also connect with Chloe because she was also in the music program, just in the choir. So we got to know each other. Like I would be playing timpani and she'd be like right behind me in the church, just kind of be talking, you know. So yeah. Oh, and I also play drums, and I do that with Heritage sometimes here and there whenever there's concerts. Actually, we're doing one in Boise in a couple months, and I need to practice for that. But
There you go.
yeah.
Okay. Any favorite concerts or that you've ever played in?
Oh yeah, so definitely we had a huge concert in Ontario, California, celebrating 45 years of Heritage Singers.
Yeah.
And that was kind of like the big send-off, like this is the last time we're doing something this big. I remember doing one, it was the 30th, and that I was a little kid then, and I just thought it was such a huge production, and it was a really big deal for my grandparents, and I knew, like, we all knew this 45th one was was going to be the last kind of big reunion, and it was just so great, like playing through pretty much 50 years, or almost 50 years of repertoire that Heritage has done, and honoring the family and what they've done. So that one will always stick out to me as just like, I'm so glad I got to do that. It was in a crowd of like, I want to say, it was a few thousand people were there. And but none of that really mattered. It was just being able to honor the family and the legacy was probably the best part about that.
Yeah, beautiful. Heritage was a big blessing in our family. My dad would always play whatever is the most recent VHS tape.
Oh yeah.
The one I remember the most is the Tahiti one. Because my dad would play it. It was always on the TV. You walk past the room, whatever room he has it on. It was And so, yeah, I remember seeing your mom in there. Island of Love.
Island of Love.
Yep.
That's what I was gonna
Totally,
say. Island of Love. Yep.
Yep, full on. Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah,
Chloe,
Austin has like a special skill that not very many people know about.
What is
that
it?
I used to play with him in college, this game where I would play like just the first measure of any Heritage song, and he had to name it in the first measure, and he can do that with almost any Heritage song. It's pretty crazy.
Not really like the old stuff, but I mean like the newer stuff.
Yeah.
It's kind of interesting how I know all that. But yeah, I mean that's just what I grew up on, and it is a kind of a fun skill. It's just like I know that song. But I mean, my mom beats anyone because she grew up.
True.
She started singing when she was little, like when they first started, so she knows all the songs. But anyway, fun little skill.
Yeah.
Anyway,
there you go. Oh, well, I just happen to have. I'm just kidding.
all right, bring it on
right now.
Let's do it.
Right now. Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, right on. And then Chloe, what would be the intro spiel to who is Chloe?
So I grew up not very far from here in Paradise, California. I was born and raised there, went to Paradise Adventist Academy for my whole schooling career, K to 12. And then from there, I went up to Walla Walla University, where we met. And I had a great experience up there. And then we came back down here. And then my family, I'm one of 4 children, and it's me and 3 brothers.
Okay.
So I'm the only girl in the family.
And where do you fall in the lineup?
I am a twin, and me and my twin are the oldest.
Okay.
Yeah.
And do you know which one of you twins came out first?
Yeah, so Jesse came out first.
Okay.
Yeah. Much to my chagrin.
Okay. Does he lord it over you?
No. If anything else, I do the opposite, and I try to think of all the reasons that I might be older than him.
Oh.
You know, like he wasn't breathing when he came out, and I was.
Technically, yeah, I would count that. You started breathing first.
Yeah.
Yeah. There you go.
No, but he definitely takes on like the older brother role for sure, and I take on the older sister role.
Yeah.
And,
right on.
Yeah, it's fun being a twin.
And then how much further did the next children came?
Yeah, so we're all about 2 years apart.
All 2 years, okay.
Ish, give and take, you know, a little bit.
Okay.
So yeah, I always like track our ages by whether we're all going into an odd year or an even year. So this year was the even year, and then when my middle brother Ben has a birthday in December, he starts us off on the odd years. Yeah. So that way I can keep track of everybody's age.
There you go.
Yeah.
Love it. And so you guys met because of music, right?
Yeah, so we met through a mutual friend that I wasn't really aware was a mutual friend until Austin came to Walla Walla. So I'm about a year older than Austin. So I was a sophomore when he was coming in as a freshman at Walla Walla, and a friend of mine that I sang in E-Cantori with, which is the select choir at Walla Walla University. So her mom sang in Heritage years back.
Okay.
And so they knew Austin's family, and they all lived in Walla Walla at the time.
Gotcha.
And I had become really close friends with her middle daughter, Chelsea. And so I remember like that summer I had driven up, and when I got there, we were just so excited to see each other. Chelsea was like, "You want to go to Frozen Yogurt with Austin or with my friend?" And I was like, "Yeah, let's go." And so I got in the car, and she goes, "Well, I want you to meet somebody super awesome. This is Austin."
Awesome, Austin.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay.
And so we went to Frozen Yogurt and just kind of it was a casual hangout.
Sure.
And at that time, I didn't know any connection between Austin and Heritage existed whatsoever. So anyway.
So you sincerely liked him in spite of the connection.
I did. Well, I found out later that night because they were driving home. Austin was sitting in the front, and I just overheard like some conversation about Heritage. And being my naive self, I just said like, "Oh, hey, you know Heritage singers? I grew up with them too."
Nice.
This guy turns around and goes, Oh yeah? What song do you know by that?
Yeah. and
Prove that you know what's up.
There's some backstory
Okay.
because I did pull that card earlier with some people that I started to meet during that first week of college where you get to meet all the freshmen and stuff. And I was like, oh yeah, like, have you heard of Heritage Singers? And they're like, yeah, I did. And it's like, they wear those really long dresses and, you know, they're really conservative. And it's like, I don't really like that. So I was like, okay, I mean, they don't do that anymore. Like, it was hip for the time.
Yeah.
It was very hip for the time.
Yes.
But I mean, yeah, if you're younger looking back at that, it does look kind of funny, but.
Sure.
So when she said she knew Heritage, I was kind of just like defeated at that moment, and I was just like, right, you know. So I was like, yeah, name a song, you know, if you really know them, like.
Yeah.
Just a test.
Yeah, so...
And what did you say?
Well, I froze because my brain started putting together like, oh wait, he might like be a little more involved with Heritage than I thought this conversation was.
Okay.
And so the only song that came to mind was This Old House. So
Nice.
that was the song.
Okay.
Yeah.
But it was enough to prove that I knew who they were.
Did she pass?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, so then later, you know, this was Austin's first time being away from his family. I know it was a big deal for him.
Sure.
You know, just growing up and being so ingrained in the family as a ministry. And so after we dropped him off, we figured out that Austin and I were in the same music theory class together. And so Chelsea and Kana were like, you got to take care of him because he's, you know, a little bit scared. And
And
so
I didn't know
did.
that at the time. But I mean, it was true.
It was true. Okay. Fair enough.
Yep.
Fair enough.
Music theory
Yeah.
set it off.
What did you first notice about, or when did you realize, when did your heart start beating a little faster for him?
For Austin?
Yeah.
Oh.
Well, we should first start by saying we started in that music theory class together, and the music teacher was new. He was out of college. I think
he was
he's
a contract teacher.
Yeah, he was filling in, and he's just like, okay, I just want to calibrate the class. Just I want to see, like, he put up some notes on there, and it's like, go up to the piano and just play what you see up there. And so like every single person in the class just went up and played it. And it was my turn. It was like, I don't know how to read music. But I just went up there and I put my hands on the keys and I looked at him. I said, I can't. He said, take a seat. I said, cool. So yeah, I was the only person in that class who couldn't do that. And so I think at that time, Chloe felt really bad for me. So afterwards, she's like, hey, do you want to like study together sometime? And at first I was like, oh, she must think I'm pretty cool. You know, and then we talked about it later, and it's like, no, she just feels bad for me.
I felt so bad. I'm like, I can't imagine getting up in front of a whole class, like knowing you don't have a skill that everybody else in the room has, at least to some degree, enough to play what's on the board.
Sure.
And just have to say like, I can't, you know? And I was like, I can at least tell you what the notes are on the piano. And then it worked out really well because since he has timpani background, he, even though he doesn't read a lot of music, the timpani's in bass clef.
Sure.
And so he reads the rhythm in bass clef. And I am all a treble clef person. So we would like team up on our homework and I would do the treble clef for him and he'd do the bass clef for me. And we'd, you know, kind of quiz each other and all of that. So I don't know. I think there was kind of a point where I was having some issues, like social issues in college with some friends and just really struggling with how to take care of them and kind of go through those relationships. And Austin took notice that it was wearing on me.
Wow.
And actually, like, even before we were dating, he pulled me aside, you know, just to say, like, just noticed that you've been struggling lately and wanted to say I'm here for you and what, you know, is there anything that I can do to help or anything you need? And at that time I felt so much like I was giving to people that somebody coming to me to just like take something off my plate or give to me just totally knocked me off my feet. And I think that was the first time that I was like, wow, he's kind of cute. Made my heart flutter definitely a little bit.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
What about you, for you, Austin?
Well, I invited her over because I figured out that she's from Paradise. I actually gave her an old iPhone.
Okay.
So yeah, that's a funny story. Before our finals, we just wanted to see each other and wish each other good luck because we didn't know, when we'd see each other next. And so she learned I really love like the Welch's grape, like the white grape sparkling.
Like the sparkling juice.
Yeah, for celebrations and shows. She got me one. I was like, as a gift, as like, you completed your first finals, congratulations. And I learned that she was using an Android phone, and it was barely working. So I had an older iPhone, and I put it in a cracker box. It's like, I got you some crackers.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
It was, it was an iPhone.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Like, I got you some juice, and he's like, here's an iPhone.
Yeah, and she's been iPhone ever since. No. Well, she has, but
Yeah.
It's a prerequisite
Anyway.
to marry
Wow.
Austin and the iPhone.
But yeah, and then just like I just really enjoyed our time together, so I invited her over to the lodge, which is up in Placerville where I've lived my whole life. And yeah, we just kind of bonded a little more, and we just learned that it was just easy to talk to each other and like, yeah.
We kind of went old school. We had like late night phone conversations from afar.
Right on.
Yeah. You just, the person, like, it's just so easy to talk to them.
Yeah.
And you just talk for hours, and then you're just like, oh, it's 3 a.m. We should probably get to bed. So yeah, that was a huge sign.
Right on. Beautiful. And you now are parents as well?
Yeah, that's been a big step.
Huge step, yeah.
It's been so fun. So fun.
Yeah. What are some of the highlights of it? What's some of your favorite aspects of being a mom or a dad?
I mean, the cuddles
and you're
are great.
a boy mom and a boy dad.
Yeah.
Too, by the way. Just,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah. Caden just brings so much joy into our lives. He's just like a people person. You can tell already from his little personality. Like, he wants to engage with others, and he just has had joy from the time he was little. I mean, the first time he smiled, we were just like, oh, like all parents.
Yeah.
We got it on camera, which was awesome.
Oh, right on.
And now he loves to laugh. He loves to be silly and goofy. And it reminds me a lot of my grandpa on my dad's side. He was a big jokester. And he actually passed away right after I got pregnant with Caden.
Okay.
But a lot of sometimes the looks that Caden gives just are like totally him. And that's just kind of a fun little like God mischief nod, to just bring that back around. And he seems to really love music, like his grandpa Max.
Loves music.
Today he was like he got a little microphone thing for his birthday, and he was just like put the whole thing in his mouth and like
Nice.
So I mean, just those aspects of just the joy that he brings and the new perspective on life that he gives us is just probably the best part of being parents.
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah, it like reminds you of like when you're a kid, and it just like everything's just so exciting, and just like there's so much wonder in the world. It just translates over back to being a parent again, and that's been really fun.
Right on. And how do you guys go about the balance of doing life, ministry, work, and parenting? That's just something I'm always curious about all parents, because Andrea and I, we've been parents for almost 8 years and still trying to figure it out, I guess. But yeah.
So we got a pretty good system working where I work from the lodge. There's offices in the lodge, and I get to work from there. And
Maybe we should say what the lodge is.
Sure. Yeah.
You
The
will
lodge.
know what
Okay.
the lodge
The
is.
lodge is the Heritage Singers headquarters since about 1973.
Yeah.
Its original purpose, it has like 8 bedrooms in it or so, and the original purpose of it was for the singers. They would come in the summer and rehearse their songs and all that, and then go off on the road for like 10 months at a time. And so like that headquarters would just be like everyone would be able to come in, rehearse their music, and spend some time together before they go on tour again. And so they haven't really been doing tours anymore, but we still have all those bedrooms, extra bedrooms and stuff. So it's really been a place of a lot of healing, a lot of peace, because it's kind of secluded. Like there isn't a whole lot of noise or light pollution or anything. And yeah, it's kind of been a sanctuary for a lot of people. And I learned about it just later in life because I just grew up in it, so I didn't realize the importance of it until later in life.
Yeah, so there's 2 apartments on either side of it, upstairs, and then a big kitchen under one apartment, and under the other apartment there's offices. And then just recently we remodeled part. Behind that was a storage area for like all the CDs and vinyl and stuff like that. But nowadays we don't need as much storage space for that. So we actually got like one of those big metal shipping containers and moved our storage out there. And then Austin and I remodeled that area into an apartment for us. So now his parents live in one apartment, his grandma lives in another apartment, and then we live in the new apartment down there. So that's the setup that we've got right now.
And so I'm super excited because Caden gets to live how I lived growing up, where I was living with my parents, and on the other side of the house were my grandparents. And so, and I just really loved being able to see them just whenever I wanted. They were always around. They were also working in the office too. Everyone's always in the office. So I get to do that with Caden now, and so I mostly take care of him during the day while Chloe's at school. And then when she comes home, she kind of takes over a little bit. Well, we kind of co-parent.
We tag team, you know, depending on how hard the days were at work for us. We kind of, you know, it's finding that balance, which we're not 100% there, but we can kind of read each other, you know, in the evening and figure out what each other can handle as far as the parenting goes. And sometimes that means sending the other one straight to bed while you finish up the night. But yeah, so that's been just a huge blessing for me, being a working mom. You know, it was definitely hard to come back to work after having Caden and being able to just be on maternity leave and spend all day with him. But Austin was just like a wonderful support. He would bring Caden almost every day during lunch. Sometimes he'd stay while I taught choir, and so that helped to like have the connection with him. And then, you know, having that multi-generational household kind of, you know, there's always somebody to love on him. And that's just such a big burden off of us, you know. It's like when somebody doesn't have it, somebody else in the house probably does. So we just all kind of work as a team in that way. And it still gets overwhelming sometimes, especially when Heritage is doing a lot of concerts and we're like on for the week, on for the weekend, and just kind of a constant cycle. It can get tiring, and we definitely don't have it all figured out.
What's that schedule like for you guys? Just real quick, are you guys just usually like flying away on the weekends and then just flying back before the school week starts a lot of the time, or when?
So it kind of fluctuates.
It fluctuates
throughout the year.
So, like this year, for example, there haven't really been any concerts in this first half. But coming into August, September, October, November, December, there are going to be more concerts where I'm going to have to leave for the weekend.
Okay.
She's going to stay here, and sometimes we'll be able to go together, which will be fun. But yeah, definitely they're not as tour heavy as they were before, which has been nice, and it's been great for my mom too, because she actually gets to be home and be a grandma. So,
right on.
Yeah, we're fortunate in that way.
Yeah, beautiful.
Yeah. So coming into this year, taking on the new role as principal, it's probably going to be some adjustment to that scheduling, because it probably won't be as easy to just go away for the weekend and come back and start stuff again on Monday. So we're going to be figuring some of that out with Caden, and you know, like for example, they have a concert coming up in a couple months here where the band is playing, so Austin and his whole family are going to be gone, and Caden and I are going to be home. So figuring out how to, you know, navigate that's going to be new. But, I think just like anything, it's always a journey of like continuing to learn and adjust, and maybe it works now and then we readjust later and something else works. So we just try to come at it from that perspective.
Okay.
And
Sure. And I want to delve into the new principal role, but just before that, did you guys? Okay, so how did you end up back in Placerville? Was that always the plan, or?
Yeah.
Well, yes and no, because so since I graduated the year before him, there was kind of that awkward life point, where it's like, okay, do I pick a spot and get a job wherever I can get a spot and then hope that Austin follows me?
Okay.
Or do I really try to stay like in Walla Walla, or do I go back to Paradise, my hometown? So there was kind of conversation about where we would land before, but it ended up that I got a job in Walla Walla and Milton. Milton State Line, Milton Free Water. So a couple of schools there that I did kind of like interim jobs for that year. And we had some conversation of like, do we stay here? Do we go home? Like what do we do? And we just felt really called to come back to Placerville. And it was kind of a leap of faith because neither of us had jobs here. It was just brand new. We didn't know where we were going to live or do any of that sort of stuff. But yeah, we felt like this is where we were supposed to be. And it was really cool, like once we got here, because his grandparents surprised us for our wedding. They actually bought a little house because they were looking at getting into real estate.
Okay.
And so they like on the side, they bought a house, and they came at it as like, we want to show you this house that we saw that maybe you guys can look into like renting or boarding. And then we got in there and like our picture was on the wall. Aww. So they had a special setup, and they let us rent the house from them for our first few years of marriage. So that was like the first big blessing of just having somewhere to live.
Yeah.
And then not very long after that, my mom was up here and she goes, did you see that there's an opening for a kindergarten teacher at Orangevale Adventist School? And I had been on like maybe the day or two before.
Okay.
And there was no opening.
It wasn't on there.
No. And then this opening came up, and I called, I gave him my resume. I even, I'd been coached from college, like just go show your face and hand your resume in person, because that's like the good thing to do. Yeah. And as I'm driving down there to hand in my resume, I got a call from the principal, and just very interested in interviewing me. So I actually had an interview like the next night. And then that night I got offered the job at Orangevale. So it was very like cool. Taking that step of faith, and then having just kind of like the pieces fall into place was just really cool to see.
And like that's how I grew up, because the family business is like, it's all based off of faith. There's no guaranteed income. Yeah. So growing up, there were a lot of times when just they wouldn't be able to make it for the next month. Like, but then just the day before, like a check would come in the mail for the right amount. And so like our family's kind of always lived off of this basis of faith. Like, like we believe this is something that it's gonna happen, or like, we know God will take care of you in this way. Like, we don't know how, but we just believe that it will. And so Chloe hasn't really been used to that, rightfully so. Like, she's had some hard times growing up. But I thankfully got to show her, like, you know what, like if we just go into this, like, we have family, like we have someone we have support, but even though we don't know all the answers, like we know God will provide. And so it was just really great to bring her into that kind of world of living by faith.
And since you were born into it and brought up into it, did it just kind of feel like, that's just how it is? God just, or was there ever a time that you were kind of anxious, but then you got to see it come through and there was a learning process to it? Or was it just, that's how it is?
Yeah, I think for me, that's just kind of been my whole life. That's just how it is. So
that's so cool.
I wasn't really worried about it at all.
Yeah.
But it was really hard convincing Chloe.
Man.
Yes, his faith is very remarkable for sure.
Yeah. Okay. So then, the convincing part, is that still in progress, or is there a special pivotal time where that clicked, where it's like, yeah, God's got this?
Yeah. I mean, I would say, that part of me has always been there.
Yeah.
But there's been like some harder times growing up. So like my dad is a private contractor.
Yeah.
And he had 4 kids when the housing market crashed, in whatever year that was, I forget. But we were young, we were 7 or 8, and all of a sudden there was he had no work whatsoever for months on end. And so that kind of defined our childhood a little bit. It put us in just kind of like this poverty level almost, and kind of put me into some survival type mode stuff, which was nobody's fault. It was just the cards we were dealt, And so I've always just like wanted to have a plan and like know my next steps. And I worked like 3 jobs in high school and paid my way through college because we couldn't, there wasn't support from my family to do that. So it's been like having to really just get things done and always have a plan so that I don't find myself like stuck, Sure. But amidst that, I've always known, seen God's hand in that, and dating Austin definitely opened my view to that in whole new ways. Actually, before I met Austin, the summer before I met Austin was kind of I had just finished my freshman year, and I knew I had my sophomore year coming up, and my freshman year of college, a community member actually sponsored my college that I needed to pay. They weren't able to do that for my sophomore year. So I found that out, and then my family wasn't able to help me either. And so I had just a lot of heart-to-heart talks with God because I felt like this pull that I needed to go back to Walla Walla and finish my schooling. And but how was I going to do that financially when, there's so many things. So I just kept going through the financial aid process. And I remember I'd had this conversation with my mom, just, this is what it is, what we can afford, what we can't. She really wanted me to stay here and go to PUC because then there's more grant stuff that you can get, but it just didn't feel right. So the next day I got a phone call from another community member that had elderly parents, and they were kind of starting to go downhill and needed 24-hour care. And they had some of it covered, but they had a lot of it that they needed help covering. And that ended up being like all days sometimes. And they paid me really well for it. And I just remember thinking like, seeing God lead in that way, and like just because I had felt this calling, but like, how am I going to do it? And just finally surrendering it and saying, if it's meant to be, show me a way. And so, by the time I finished working that summer, I had earned enough to pay what I needed to for college for the year. And so like driving up to Walla Walla before I met Austin was like, I just like come off of that high with God, and then God drops him in my lap. It's just cool to see him working, so there's things like that. But I was very much like, gotta have a plan. I'm not gonna step somewhere that doesn't have a plan. So I think definitely our move was a big time when I just saw like God work without having a plan, without knowing what's next. And so that was really cool. And then just, even from there on, I just felt his leading in our lives, even coming up to EAS. We knew we wanted to start a family, but we still lived in Placerville, and I worked in Orangeville, which is in Sacramento. So it was like a 40-minute commute. And then you add in school events and all of those things, and it was pretty intensive. And I didn't want to have a family and have to like commit an hour and a half to driving a day and not being able to, have that time. But I knew I had to work. So it was like that year was the year that EAS started reaching out and saying, hey, we have an open kindergarten position. We'd love for you to come check it out. And then, yeah, they offered me that job. And that was kind of another little leap of faith because I told Orangevale I wasn't coming back before I
Interesting.
had a job here.
Whoa, okay.
Yeah. So, but yeah, they ended up offering me the job, and now I work 5 minutes from home. And, you know, families all over the place and integrated, and just like the best situation.
Good deal.
And sorry, I just want to say too, like, Chloe's rubbed off on me too in the way of like planning and like being prepared for the future, because I think sometimes I can get a little too caught up and just like, we don't know what's going to happen, but you know, God will provide. But I mean, she did kind of ground me in the way of just like, just in case there are some things, like we just need to set some things aside. And I just wanted to say I think it's been a really good pairing, and I don't want to like attribute it all to myself. She's like helped me in certain ways too. Sure. So just wanted to say that.
Yeah, right on.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. Did you know or did you ever plan to, that when you started out teaching, even going to school for teaching, that principal is something that you might have been called to, or that you were aspiring to, or was that?
Yeah. Yeah. I have just always had a passion for education. And I didn't necessarily know it all the time, but my mom likes to tell a story of like when we were little and me and my twin were in the stroller and my twin wasn't sitting down, and I was always telling him, sit down, Jesse, sit down. And she's like, I'm the mom, you're the child. And so she's like, I always knew you were going to be a teacher. I didn't know that till college, but then once I got into education, I just kind of felt like, oh, maybe there's more, and I've always wanted to be involved in more. I definitely did not see it coming this quickly. I kind of thought like, oh, down the road, not when I have a young family and all of that sort of stuff. So when it was first broached to me this year, I flat out said no. There's no way. Like, Caden's too young. I'm in the middle of like trying to figure out how to be a parent, and like I don't need to figure out how to be a principal. But it was interesting because like for a few months God worked on my heart, and then it just like became a leading that I couldn't ignore, you know. And so I just kind of said, okay, God, here we go. Like, take me where you want.
Wow.
And just kind of opened up the door, and then here I am. What are the
aspects of education that get to your heart the most? Like where does the passion come from for education?
I love just loving on kids.
Yeah. Very cool.
That's my biggest passion, is just, I mean, there's so much yuck in this world, and what I love is when kids come in my classroom and I know that while they're in my classroom, they're in a safe space, they're loved and, you know, cared for, no matter what's going on outside of school.
Beautiful.
And some of that just comes, you know, from my own childhood experiences. It's heartbreaking because some 5-year-olds have been through more in their 5 years than any of us have been in our whole lifetime. And just being able to love on them and encourage them and introduce them to Jesus and give them the hope that kind of pulled me through my dark times and my things that I had to work through. I mean, that's it for me, really.
Wow.
Yeah.
Man, that's powerful. So, as principal, how do you imagine that being emphasized because it's coming from, I mean, we know we have an amazing team that also loves the love on kids, of course. So we're not saying that it's because of, you know what I mean? But you having that and coming, of course, it's going to be emphasized. And so besides just being you, are there any intentional ideas of how that you imagine going about intentionally or into?
there's lots of ideas that I have, and
Yeah.
I don't know how many of them will come to fruition,
Sure,
and how
sure.
many of them are just, like far-fetched ideas. But I'd love to find a way to bring more resources into our school, like whether that be counseling or special education or anything that just helps us to reach more kids.
Yeah, sure.
That's education's goal overall anyway, no child left behind, and trying to individualize learning, and all of that is just so wonderful. The unfortunate part is that when you're just a general classroom teacher, there's some limitations with that. You can't do 15 different lessons necessarily, and there's methods and things that we do to reach as many as possible and differentiate as much as possible. But I would just love to see more resources that could reach more kids and give them what they need within the school system, especially with a Christian education, because a lot of our Christian schools kind of lack that ability to, include all of those types of things. And I would just love to see like some of the kids that I know are going through hard stuff, like be able to just connect them with somebody that they can talk to, and that can help them through. We're trained a little bit as teachers, and we do the best we can. But when you have more resources, it actually empowers teachers to do more.
Totally.
So, just those are some of my ideas. I love nature. So we have a lot of property at EAS that I'd love to see developed in, different ways that we could, do outdoor education a little bit more, or all sorts. I don't know. There's just a lot of opportunities, and I'm really just trying to pray and ask God to kind of lead where He wants there. I think He has some pretty cool plans for us.
Makes me want to be a kid and go back to school again. That sounds rad.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah.
Beautiful. I love that you mentioned also counseling, because, in Christianity and even in Seventh-day Adventism a little bit, that's, or Christianity abroad. I mean, I didn't mean to separate Seventh-day Adventists from Christianity, but there's been a little bit of a resistance for it. But in the Seventh-day Adventist Church, of all churches, with a priority towards the people's health and well-being and health message, I'm seeing more and more people realize and recognize that of all aspects of health, mental health, what in the world? Why would we not capitalize on that and pour into it?
Yeah.
So that's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. So, final question for you guys.
Okay.
Is there someone in your life that has made a major impact on you or influence on you? That's and I'm sure there's got to be many in your guys' lives, but is there any one special, and you can name more than one, that has impacted you, that you would say that God has used to make you who you are and do what you get to do?
You want to go?
Sure, I'll go first. That person is definitely my grandpa. I don't want to get emotional, but he started Heritage just as a young kid, and his story is he was a farm boy in Idaho, and just one day he was just looking up at the sky and saw an airplane, and was just like, God, if you allow me, like I want to be your servant. I want to be able to travel around the world spreading the gospel, and like just took that leap of faith and like had this whole ministry. Like 54 years later, it's still going, and this family is still involved. And I just really look up to his character and like the way he interacted on stage and off stage. Like it stayed the same. Like this, like I've seen so many instances of like being taken advantage of or being hurt, and just the way he treated those, and my grandma too, just the way they both worked in handling situations like that was always just like what Jesus would do. It's just like, I forgive you. Like, you've wronged me however way, but you know what? I forgive you, you know, and they never held a grudge toward anyone. And yeah, just being able to see them work, my life was just, it's been awesome. And yeah, he's a huge role model for me, and not just for me, just people around the world too. Like, they know his name and they know his legacy, and yeah, it's a pretty big legacy.
Wow.
So I'm just so fortunate to have been his grandson and just watch him through my whole life.
Yeah. Thank you. That is just seeing and listening to your story about, I mean, even from not knowing, no one in the family knows how to read music, although it sounds like you were learning at Walla Walla.
And then
he did one quarter.
How's
and
the
then
family feel about you being able to read music a little bit?
I mean, I think they were excited for a little bit, but I kind of lost it after 2 semesters. Like,
oh, good. Okay.
Yeah.
You're not betraying anybody. Okay.
You know, I knew it really well. Now it's kind of, but.
but yeah, but just that sense of being just surrounded by the examples of living by faith, especially even in times where, okay, is this ship going to sink? But just instilling it in you, and to the point where, okay, because Grandpa saw an airplane and it led him and inspired a prayer in his heart, that I get to sit here and listen to, not that he did it for me, but listen to someone who says, yeah, in my childhood, faith that's just how things were. God was always good and always supported. And so that's just a powerful thing to see, always the cause and effect, and how that legacy goes from generation to generation.
Yeah,
so
definitely.
That's rad. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
So for me, I had a group of people from my church that I now lovingly refer to as my church moms.
Very
and
cool.
They were just like a group of 3 ladies that they had a passion for girls and helping girls connect with Jesus. And they had some really cool programs. One of them would open up their house to girls from, I think it was like 6th, 7th or 8th grade. Maybe it was just high school. I don't quite remember the grade level, but she would open her house up for the weekend.
Yeah.
And we'd just have this girls retreat at her house. And
How often?
it was like once a year.
Beautiful.
Yeah, and they made like a huge deal of it. The parents would, come to us for the whole weekend. It was a whole group of moms. They'd get everybody coordinated, but there were like 3 main ones that I just really connected with, and that really got me through some tough times in my life. And even now, when I go back to Paradise, I see them and I check in, and we keep in touch. And
Okay.
so she's Ben Maxon's wife.
Okay.
Yeah. So I have a good connection with her. And then the other one was my 8th grade teacher. She was a church member, and she was the one who would open up her house. So
Rad.
yeah. So they just had a big impact on me and my, fragile teen years, and helped me to really keep my relationship with Jesus going. Stay close to Jesus, and I still look up to them.
Beautiful. It's so cool to, as I'm just kind of reviewing our conversation as a whole, and the example of, it's like there's a stable confidence that comes from a foundation of rock there, and you describing one of your passions about education is that you get to love on kids. And then when we ask about, who influences you or who made an impact, these people that loved on you, these women in your church. And that's just beautiful, how discipleship, just watching that discipleship take place, and how that's played out from the people that poured into you and the people that you pour into. Joe,
of course.
And just really appreciate you guys being willing to share your hearts with all those that will be and very much looking forward to it's obvious that God has led you both thus far. Just as a member of the Placerville Seventh-day Adventist community, I'm grateful that we get to have you guys in our lives. Like, I feel like our community is very loved, and evidence of that is God's put you guys in it. So thank you guys for listening to God's call and saying yes to it. Can I say a little prayer for you guys?
Sure.
Yeah.
All right. Now, if before we do, if there's, one thing from each of you that you would want to pray for during this time, what would it be?
Just overall, the new role I'm taking on,
Yeah.
pinpoint all those things where he's leading.
Yeah. Beautiful.
Yeah, and I agree. I think prayer is important for Chloe and just the whole school, just going into this new season. Pray about it all the time, and we're excited, but we need the prayers.
Yeah. Beautiful. Okay. Yeah. Let's do it. Gracious God, it's been just so sweet to listen to the stories of Austin and Chloe, and just recognizing that the reality of it all is that it's your story, God. It's your story of upholding, to strongly support those whose hearts are turned towards you, and I'm just recognizing that right in front of me is on the legacy of the heritage singers, and you're calling upon them and just seeing, and I've seen that in Austin and Chloe as well, the impact that's had for them. And here they are, continuing the legacy and the ministry, whether it's through music, whether it's through just faithfully carrying out your will in whatever capacity. As I've asked them, what is on their hearts, El Dorado Adventist School is the thing they both mentioned, and the desire for your wisdom to go about your business, their Heavenly Father's business. And just as Solomon has asked for wisdom, they seek wisdom as well. And Lord, we thank you that you're a God who has loved on them very much, and they want to love on young people at the school. And I think, myself as just someone who has been an observer of life for some time, and young people and education, a loved kid seems to have a much better time learning and a greater passion for learning than a kid that is insecure about love in that regard. And so, Lord, thank you for creating a safe place at El Dorado Adventist School, and we pray that you just continue to carry that forward.